All right, welcome everybody. So today's topic is live streaming and all the wonderful details that go along with that, or virtual events. I'm not sure if if that's the same thing. Maybe we even need to define that further. But I think for the sake of this conversation, it's just the idea of going virtual, either live streaming or broadcasting things. And there's just a whole slew of things to discuss with that. So I kind of have a feeling this might require a part 2 to this discussion, and that's completely fine. We can do a part 2 next week if need be. So I went through, I don't know if a lot of you had a chance to see it, but I'll definitely post it with this information. The Alliance of Performing Arts Conference did a webinar and put out a really, really wonderful document on the legal landscape of live streaming. And so from there, I kind of gathered some major categories. There's all of the licensing and clearances and what is covered by all of our music licensings, what is not, where do you have to get additional licenses, how you go about doing that. Like that's a whole big one. And then there's also, the content presentation. If you have artists, broadcasting from home, if you're going to be putting something out there, you obviously want to make sure that the presentation is professional and looks good, especially if this is something that you're going to have people pay for. So there's that whole technology side of things to make sure that it looks good and that the tech is working. And there's all different platforms to consider as well. There's YouTube, Facebook Live, Instagram, Twitch. I mean, that list goes on and on and on. So if you're really thinking about doing this, you can, you've got some decisions to make there. And then, the monetization, if you do want to try to do this for some ticket income, or if it would be more of a donation type of thing, those are decisions you would have to make as well if you plan to go do a live stream or a virtual event. So I'm going to open the floor up if somebody really wants to get us started on any of those or a different piece. I tried to, like I said, I tried to glean the big ones, but let's just dive in. So Matt. You're still muted, Matt.
Okay. I'm having technology challenges, including trying to watch Bill Black last night. I have Windows 10. I couldn't connect. It took me half an hour. So things don't automatically, they're not all the same. And so to sell a show, knowing that everyone may have a different system and that they're not all compatible, and you have to maybe have to do things like go into your controls and click something off, that made me crazy. And I'm relatively technologically competent. The big thing I'm wrestling with though right now, and this is timely, is the whole licensing, because we want to do some live streaming. I want to understand it fully. Clearly, the ASCAP and BMI licenses that a live performance venue has, which would be different than most university programs, does not allow this. So I'm trying to find out what additional type of license do we need, and so on and so forth. So I welcome whatever knowledge is already out there that will save me from further digging. But I do know that, and I've got my board saying, why can't we just do it? I said, we can't. We legally cannot do it. So at this time. So that's just my hello, everyone. And that's where I'm at on this lovely day.
Thanks, Matt. That's a perfect way to get us started. And yeah, and I where you're at, because even a couple of the things that I've seen, there's some pretty major fines if you don't follow the rules, and that's scary. So Tiana, you go ahead.
All right, so this is one of the topics I wanted to have, because in the last month or so, I've been doing an extensive amount of research. I'm Tiana from Carthage College. So this could literally be someone's master's thesis. It's massive. I've talked with Amy and Fox Cities, Hassig. I haven't checked in with Tommy. Oh, what's Tommy's last name? Hensel? Hensel, right? Yeah, Tommy Hensel. I heard that he has some extensive research, so I need to contact him. So this is kind of the deal, and if anyone else has more information, I really welcome it. From where I got stopped at was, yes, we have ASCAP, CSAC, BMI. We don't have GMR, but that's another one. But that is okay for you to perform and with your artists in your venue or on your campus. And we can also be covered as an institution for our ensembles to live stream as long as it comes down of YouTube in 24 hours. So we're covered on that. But to do live streaming just on our platform, on our website, or our own, we set up YouTube through Carthage. There's a couple different things. So there's a live streaming issue, and then there's also, we see a lot of the choirs where they're singing from home, and then they put one collaboration piece together, and then they perform it and put it on Facebook. So there's a lot of licensing issues with that, and Matt's right. So there's a huge fine that you can get. Now, can the music industry say, hey, please take it down, mute it, or you get fined? Absolutely. But they don't have to. I think the minimum is $250,000 fine for just doing it because you knew and acknowledged that you did that. You can also not put that you don't own the rights to the music because now you just legally said that you know what you were doing was illegal. So that's another no-no. So my question, where I got stopped is, I was with Harry Fox looking on their website. From what I'm learning from them, it's an individual music license. And that gets really expensive. So the reason why I had to quickly figure this out is we have commencement on Saturday, and we have our choirs that virtually put together individually and then came together in one video for commencement. And we have 4 pieces that are being performed during that and when they're reading the names. And one of the pieces, A Blessing for Aaron, we had to pay $250 for one time using that. And that's just for this weekend. That's very expensive. I got to the roadblock. I just don't know. I'm noticing, I'm talking to other institutions and they're saying, well, we're not asking for permission, we're asking for forgiveness. And I just can't take that chance. So I talked to Amy, and I don't know if she's on the call, but she mentioned they do the Tommy Awards. And instead of having the music like they usually do, they're not taking that chance, and they're just putting together slideshow type for their celebration. So I'm kind of at that end. I was really hoping, just like BMI and ASCAP, there's a blanket license that you can use, and there's not. I've also learned that YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever you want to use for a platform for social media, they have their own music licensing, but it's not extensive. So using a composer or an artist may not be covered, and they can mute it, but it's not their, I learned it is not their responsibility to do that. It's our responsibility to make sure we're covered. So that's where I'm at. I'm curious if anyone has anything further from that.
Thanks, Tiana. Anyone?
I will take that as a no.
I think we just want you to tell us, Lonnie, that we can all do this and that it will be legal.
Oh, you want me to say that? Oh boy. then the music mafia gets to come after me. Mary, then Pat.
I have not looked into this at all yet, and I am curious, but the other question I want to throw out there, and I can especially understand it like on the college campuses where you have your own ensembles. We host our city band and community chorus. I think our patrons might appreciate things like that. And I also tried to do the Bill Blagg thing last night and also had trouble connecting. Luckily, my millennial daughter was here, and we realized it was a problem with the settings on my computer. But even when we tried to fix it, we couldn't. We ended up doing it on our iPad. So you were not alone, Matt, and that is definitely an issue. We've also been trying to, we have a community school of the arts, and we do 4 different kinds of dance class. And after we shut down, we wanted to just offer some free, things to our dance students virtually. And a lot of our families struggled with connecting and understanding. So I agree that that's a huge thing. My other question though is, I think if we want to do it as a service, as a thing to stay in touch with our patrons in the meanwhile, that's great. But to do it in any way to attempt to, sell something or whatever, I struggle with the whole getting people to watch something virtual, because to me, it's almost like I can go to YouTube and watch that group. I really question, and especially after months of doing everything online, how many people really want to watch a virtual concert online? Is that even a demand? I guess is what I keep questioning.
Thanks, Mary. Pat? Pat, unmute yourself.
I was just going to say, I know Andrew Sewell from the Chamber Orchestra is starting to do some things online, some concerts so that people can watch. It'll be interesting to see what kind of a response he has. But our board decided this week that we're canceling. I'm from Verona. That we're canceling our season for this year. We just can't financially see our way through this if we have to have limited seating. So we did talk about virtual concerts in the interim just to keep people in our focus and to keep us in their focus. So I'm really interested in anything that people come up with to do this. So I didn't realize it was so complicated with licensing and everything. So if you ask the group that you want to put on, if they give you permission, would that be something, or don't you think they would even do that?
I'm not sure. I think sometimes it's not even up to the artist on some of the, if whatever licensing and things that they may have, it still has to extend to your venue. I think if you're presenting it, again, it's a whole rabbit hole, but that's a great question. I'm thinking, I think one of the things too is most of us are dealing with presenting music. So this is a problem for presenting music. I don't, and everybody correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Bill Blagg had a problem because he's not singing a song that needs a special license. He's presenting his own creation of magic. So if you have, but the problem is if you do anything music or dance that's using music, so I think it, depending on the content, and again, so much of it is going to intersect with music. So that's where kind of the main licensing issues are. I think if you had another example, like just an actor that did, some kind of original monologue, I don't think there's any issues with that kind of content because that's their own, stuff. So it's really comes down to anytime you play a song or sing a song or, that's where all the music licensing stuff comes in. So depending on what you're looking to do, you might be able to get away if you just want to, have Bill Blagg for the whole year. So, Tiana, go ahead.
Lonnie, you're right on that because they're creating their own original piece. Just be careful with dance because if you have music underlining we had that where we had our virtual dance concert and we had to make it into a documentary instead, just because we just couldn't find the licensing and it was too expensive. Pat, I'm curious if you could check in with the director of that symphony or orchestra to see what licensing is he holding to be able to have virtual concerts, because what I'm finding is it's per composition or per piece. And yes, some music can be public domain, but if the arrangement, it depends who arranged it, that will also now lock it down into a license.
Okay, and I can do that because he was going to be our first concert next year, Andrew Sewell's Chamber Orchestra. But it's his concert that he did at Concerts on the Square that he's putting online. So I don't know if that makes a difference.
Because I was looking into another thing I want to check in is, and maybe I've been doing it a little wrong, is if I can't have my guest artist on stage, if I can have them do a virtual concert from home, making sure that they are covered, because a lot of artists are, because they have to have a mechanical license or synchronization license because they're selling their music, even though it's not their original piece. So a lot of them already have that. So I would like to see that as part of the contract to make sure that they're covered. But then if I'm putting it on my platform, am I covered because I paid their fees? I don't know. It's starting. I feel like I'm just diving into this loophole of crazy messiness. And I think if you're not making a profit, if you're not charging, I think there's a way around it. It's just when the music industry learns that you're taking donations for it or you're making a profit somehow. If anyone does have, I don't know Tommy Hensel personally or professionally. If anyone has a way I can connect with him, I've learned that he actually has resources and like he has cited documents of possibly how to do this. And that's the thing. I mean, I can't find anyone to say, yes, you can do it. You're 100% covered if you buy this. So I'm just trying to find all the resources I can to move forward.
Thanks, Gianna. And for the record, since I'm seeing it in the chat, Bill Black did play some music in the background, and so we are assuming he had the proper licenses for those. And so we won't throw Bill under the bus. Jillian and then Tom.
Morning, everybody. This is Jillian from Lawrence University. We've been talking a little about doing these virtual performances. Pat, to your point, and Tiana touched on this as well, we're looking at doing this for our contemporary music series. So it's really about who owns the music, who owns the content that's being performed on your stage. So with our new music series, we're working with at least 3 composers for our series this coming year. And so all 3 of them basically will give us permission to do a live stream of their concert on our website. This series for us already is something that we do not charge for. So that would primarily just be to our, to our patron list and to our students who would be coming to this. And it would only be a one-time event. Like Tiana alluded to, like it would go up on our YouTube channel, live there for 24 hours, and then come down.
Thanks, Jillian. Tom.
I think Tom Robbins from University of Dubuque Heritage Center, and I think to solve everybody's problem, just tell all of your musical artists to perform music in the public domain, and everything will be fine, right? That'll be fine. So we can end the call now. No, just kidding. I think Jillian kind of touched on something I was going to ask about. I was just wondering, is there a difference between paid content and free content in terms of the licensing that's necessary? I think I know the answer to that question, but I don't know the specifics of it. And then the other question is there a difference if you do a 10-minute, I don't know, call it a public service announcement versus something that's an hour-long concert? Like we're wanting to do what Tommy Henselt is doing, where we're going to have a couple of artists come on and interview with me, maybe perform a little something. I'll tell them they can only perform something in the public domain. And, is there a difference between doing that and doing a full-fledged performance in terms of the licensing? So I have more questions than answers. Sorry.
Thanks, Tom. And then, so how do you figure out what's officially in public domain, too? I mean...
I know Gilbert and Sullivan is.
Okay.
So do an all Gilbert and Sullivan program.
Okay. Pat, did you have a hand up anew, or was this from before? Okay. All right. Any other thoughts? Matt.
Matt, and I apologize, I never remember where I'm from. I'm from Manitowoc, the capital civic center. And again, one can interpret these things. I did specifically look up in both ASCAP and DMI, if you're not charging, does that preclude anything? And no, you're still obligated to pay something. there's a different rate card.
Right.
And I looked up, because we were looking at bringing in a performer who writes her own music. And the music may not have been licensed, but if the performer is licensed, the performer is a member of BMI or ASCAP, that covers everything they do. So that's just, they put obstacles everywhere. So there are traps. I'm just trying to share what I regurgitating what I read yesterday.
Thanks, Matt. Michael.
I think we need to make sure we come back to the original ideas of copyright here and what are those rights that the copyright holder has. They have the right to reproduce the work. That could be in a recording, that could be a print version, whatever. They have the right to prepare or give permission for derivative works, so an arrangement of something or whatever. If the work is a public domain work originally, there's no permission needed to make a derivative work, but then the derivative work is covered by copyright, if that makes sense. So if we're taking a Shakespearean play and making a shortened version and abridged version, there's no permission needed to do it, but the work that I create as the person abridging that is now covered by copyright that comes onto the work as soon as it is created. So at creation is where copyright is set. The copyright holder also has the right to distribute the copies or recordings of the work, either for sale or and they can also sell that or lease it. So if we lease music from Boozy and Hawks, typically that means we are getting the use of the music, the physical copies, but we're also getting the right to perform it. I feel like there's one more. Anyway, those are the ones that I have right now. So that's the piece that we have to know. So an artist doing their own creation, and if they are giving permission for that to be broadcast, we are fine. But doing someone else's work that they did not create is not okay. I think there's even a gray area if they're a co-creator. So if two people do something together and one of them wants to perform it, I think there's still an issue because they're not the sole copyright holder. Does that all make sense?
As much as it can. Thanks, Michael. I don't know, and this may be a naive question too, Josiah, I see you. Is there any way that the artists themselves would hold, if it's not original content to them, or the agents? I don't know if we can throw it back to the agents. Obviously want to get their artists out there. Don't know if there's anything they could do to get us covered. Just a thought. I have no idea. Josiah, you go ahead.
So I reached out to Tommy. I sent him a Facebook message and I wrote what he responded to me in the chat. And it said, he told me that Facebook and YouTube have blanket licenses with all rights holders for free live streaming. So I don't know what that really means in the long run, but that's what Tommy just told me.
Thanks.
And then also in 2021, there's supposed to be a new blanket license being created that will cover streaming and download services. I can share that too. I just looked that up.
Thanks. Tiana?
Yeah, so when I talked to BMI, they said to source the platform you'd be posting on. And when I did take a look at those, yes, Facebook and YouTube do have blanket licensings, but it's not clear of how defined that is, right? So I know, like Jillian said, that we can put up a live stream and then take it down after 24 hours. But what about like we've seen the choirs where they collaborate into a piece and then you leave it up, right? Can we do that? Does it have to come down? And then when I talked to John Hassig, he was telling me when they were live streaming a dance performance that they had years ago, that the live streaming was fine. But then when the live streaming stayed up on Facebook, you know, these industries have so much technology that they can find what music is out there not licensed, and they did, and they said, we're muting it and you need to take it down. So it is covered, but it also really isn't. So that's where I'm trying to find. I'll contact Tommy as well, of just saying what resource do you have where they say yes, absolutely, because I want the 100% you're covered. Because again, they have been courteous and saying, hey, please take it down or we're muting you, but they don't have to legally. They can slap you with a fine. So, and I just don't want to take that chance.
Yep. Thanks, Tiana. Other thoughts? I have to agree, kind of just before I really dug into this, I thought it was more just a matter of make sure you get the right technology and the right, you know, like get everything right. But yeah, this is definitely a lot more to think about. Mary, go ahead.
I'm going to take a chance that there's others sitting back wondering this same thing. And so even though I've been there 2 years, I'm going to still call myself the newbie asking the question. Who is Tommy Hensel?
Tommy is a member of the WPN. He is in Illinois, correct? Somebody nod. Yeah, he is. Somebody can jump in and say his. I'm
Moraine Valley Community College.
Okay. I would have got that, but it's before noon. So Moraine Valley Community College in Illinois. He is actually part of the Wisconsin Presenters Network, but he's also part of the Illinois Presenters Network. And I believe he is the chair of that organization as well. So he's a great resource. He's been doing this for quite a long time, and he's been at his current position for several years. So he's a very good resource, and he's been around, he's been to our WPN conferences and things, and Arts Midwest and stuff. So thank you for asking, Mary. It just never hurts to ask. Yeah. Tom.
Yeah, just to kind of maybe get off the licensing issue, because that seems to be bogging us down. But just wondering what people are thinking in terms of, are you thinking you may use this as something that supplements your live performances as an option for people, especially for those more at-risk populations who may be looking for an avenue for your performances? And we're putting out a survey this week and asking the question if people would be willing to pay a nominal fee to see a live stream if they can't get to the venue. But I'm just wondering what all the pros and cons are there in terms of, are you discouraging people from coming to your venue who might by offering that? And then if you're offering at a discounted price, is that an incentive to do it more online? And then I have this intuitive philosophical problem of our mission of getting people to live performances. You know, so there's just all kinds of tug and pull there. But is anybody seriously considering putting their performances online? And I can't see you doing it for free if you're going to charge to get into your venue. That doesn't make any sense to me. So again, more questions.
That's good. That's what we're here for. Michael, go ahead.
I think ultimately you have to decide what is the purpose of you doing it. Is it to keep your audience engaged because they can't come to your venue right now? I think this is going to be a different world if we're not doing live performances in the fall. Right now, we know we're not doing things in the summer, likely. But if we can't do live performance until January or March, like the Guthrie is doing, then there's got to be a way to keep those audiences engaged over those months. I don't see this as a way. I don't think this is a money maker. I think that the cost that you're going to incur getting everything ready and licensed and approved and the technology in place and all of the rest are probably going to outweigh anything that you're going to bring in revenue. People right now, everything's free online, and you look at what the artists are putting out there on YouTube. I don't think people are going to pay hefty sums to sit and listen to a 1 hour concert. This is me personally, but I just don't think that that's going to happen. So I think coming back to what are you trying to do with this? You're trying to replace a revenue stream. I would suggest you question that. But if you're trying to keep them engaged, then having an artist do one song and using your social media to help do that and drive that, maybe the live interview and perform a song or two to keep them engaged, or to preview the artist that'll be with you in April or something like that. That's I think a different story.
Thanks, Michael. And I will just add the only, another possibility is if you are trying to, do this as a donor event, whereas it's a benefit thing. So you realize that they're not getting the full experience, but you want to keep your donors engaged and you want to give them some content and an opportunity to still support your venue and the artist. Because the reality is, if we are not going to live events in the fall, that's very, very difficult, not only for our venues, but these artists that are still then out of work. And so if that becomes your platform of, let's support the arts, let's support the artists that are trying to still make a living, I think you might be able to, get some cash coming in through some kind of virtual event based on like let's donate to help. So I'll just throw that one out as another possible reason to do this. Tiana.
I agree with Michael. A lot of it is to keep them engaged if our fall does go to be canceled. Just so they know that we're still there. We're still trying to show them that we're trying to still use the arts the way to cope with everything that's going on in somewhat capacity, not having like full-blown concerts necessarily, but being at a college institution, if we have to be virtual, our music students, theater students, dance students, this is their degree, this is their grade. And so though if they can do it from home, which they did, and they perform it just at a private or they submit it to the professor, that is okay. They will get their grade that is owed to them to take the classes, but they want to show their product and they want to show what they've been doing. That's why they're performers. So that's where I'm trying to learn everything so quickly, because if we do go virtual, can I show our students products out there? Plus it's recruitment for us. So on top of that, I'm curious to ask David, you guys have been doing Grand at Home. So how has that response been doing? Because you have small little concerts, right?
It's been wildly mixed. And really no rhyme or reason. Some have been, well attended. Others haven't. The way we've been doing these is kind of small local artists, people I either knew or friends of friends, and we put up a donation link through our Square account, and we just split the proceeds 50-50. It was kind of a way to keep ourselves engaged with the community and keep doing something. It was never intended to be a cash cow or anything to solve anybody's financial interests, but we've had one poor performer had a donation of $5 for the entire night, and then we had someone else that I didn't think anybody would really turn into, and they had $600. And the donations don't always reflect one-to-one with viewership either. So I think it depends, like any other fundraiser, it's who you have in the room sometimes. Yeah, I wish I could give you a blanket, this is what's going to work, this is what's not going to work. We were surprised by the results ourselves because it was so mixed.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Tiana. Lindsay.
Hi, everybody. Lindsay with River Arts Inc. in Prairie du Sac. Okay, nobody send the cops after me if we did something we weren't supposed to do. But kind of Tiana talking about like the educational aspect and how you can still show those videos. we annually host, we call it a house concert, but a concert in our gallery space, and it's all students, high school students, and they perform music. So this year, they recorded the music in their homes. The choir director put the video together, and we did a Facebook Live premiere and accepted donations. And so that video was uploaded in advance. Facebook flagged one of the songs and said, if you don't have the rights for this, we're gonna mute this. But it gave like if you want to dispute this because this is for educational purposes, like they gave that option. And so the choir director did say, yes, this was part of something that we were doing for their education, like while we're in isolation or whatever, and they let it go. And we posted it, and then we took down the video. But we could do that. I haven't not tried it with any other thing, but at least for like the student concert, Facebook gave that as an option. So, and it raised $1,500 for the music program for our schools.
Oh, thanks, Lindsay.
But don't send the cops after me if you think we shouldn't have done that.
I was gonna say, maybe I shouldn't post this recording to Facebook, or if I do, like post it under a topic like WPN discusses puppies. Keep it on the down low. Thanks, Lindsay. Other thoughts? I guess I was thinking along the lines, and again, I don't have the answer to this, but if we took the live streaming element out of it and you just had like something that went direct to your patrons. So if you had an artist do something, do a video that you just like sent in an email, like, does that make a difference? If it's not necessarily out there on the web, if it's kind of, I mean, again, I'm not sure if that's something that would be what your patrons would want, but David.
I think that goes into straight up video licensing. Years ago when my band put together a CD DVD set, for the DVD portion for the live concert, in addition to the ASCAP BMI for the physical CD, for the DVD we had to have sync licenses for every single song. And that can be problematic too. Some of them that we wanted to have on there we couldn't do because they just wouldn't give us the sync license. So it all depends on who, again, owns that particular piece of intellectual property and whether or not you can even get it sometimes. So if you have a performer that's already has a video or something in the can, hopefully they have that already done. But if they're creating something new, it could be months from the time that they create it to the time that you can actually distribute it to somebody. And again, the difference is if you're paying for it or not. So that I think gets into the sync licensing part of it.
So, sorry, I'll get Stephanie, I want to get to you, but how does this work then? Like when I take an artist's video and put it on my website, like the promo video, like, is that covered? I mean, especially if they're singing a song in a promo video that's on my website that is not necessarily public domain, like, what's that all about then? Anybody? David?
The way I've always understood it, and you know, again, an entertainment lawyer might need to be consulted for sure, but I think some of that boils down to fair use as far as what you're actually using it for. You're not using that as the entertainment, you're not presenting that as the artist's work, you're using that to promote another thing to which you're charging, which then does have your ASCAP and BMI licensing.
Okay, all right, thank you. Because now I'm thinking, oh shoot, I gotta take all the content off my website. Stephanie.
This is a little bit different, but we had a lecture presentation a month ago with Michael Beschloss. He's a presidential historian. So we contracted him as a speaker, and it's a little different because it's a conversation. But we did have it written into our contract with him, like the parameters for being able to post the conversation. So we were able to issue a private link to people who had registered for the event to rewatch it. And then there's a window where it can be posted online. So again, the licensing thing, I'm not sure how that's, you know, it's obviously very, very different when you're dealing with musicians, but I think in contracts too, you can probably build in protections for your organization as far as an agreement you have with that artist, and kind of maybe share the responsibility then for the, you know, copyrighted content. Maybe, I don't know.
Thanks, Stephanie. Michael.
We come back to that idea of fair use. And if you haven't really read about fair use, do a search for a fair use checklist or something like that. But the reason it's not a problem, Lonnie, for you to put those artist promos, one of the factors of fair use is the effect on the market value of the work. And your sharing that is only increasing that and not being detrimental to it. It's also about the amount of the work used, and the nature of the material and the purpose of its use. So there's a couple different factors there. And if you do a checklist, you'll be able to kind of get a sense if it's might be valid under fair use. But every person could answer that differently. So it's still not a, you know, and I've used 3 or 4 different checklists over the years, and it still doesn't really, every time it's different, so.
Thanks, Michael. Josiah.
So I know this doesn't pertain to performing arts centers, but I just found a licensing website or group that does licensings for churches. And there's a license for live streaming, and it includes all the worship music, everything is on that licensing. So I'm curious if anyone, I mean, Tiana, I don't know, you might have to do a lot more research, or all of us are gonna have to do this and find someone that could add that to their package, because it looks pretty accurate and it looks pretty reasonable. So I wish I was a church in a sense, so then we could get this license and then just, you know, stream live, because it covers everything. It covers literally everything from streaming to your worship music, everything, all the music you could think of, all the, you know, everything. So I'm going to share that to the thing. Yeah, it's for churches, but kind of gives us an idea where to start if no one has something like this to use.
Thanks, Josiah. Lindsay.
Sort of a shift in conversation, but if we figured out how to do this legally, and if we decided we wanted to charge something, like say it was $10 to watch this live stream, does anybody have thoughts? Has anybody looked into how they would actually execute that? Like, how would people pay, and then would they just get a link, and where would you be posting it? And so like that side of things.
Thanks, Lindsay. Yeah, that's a great, that's a whole new topic. So David, you go.
That has been a lot of what's occupied my time for the Grand and Oshkosh the last couple of weeks. Bill last night used one called streamingvideoprovider.com, and there's another one that's very similar called boxcast.com. What's interesting about these sites, they have the paywall set up through them, and then you can stream to a variety of different formats, if it's YouTube or Facebook or Twitch or whatever you want to do. And they take care of the ticketing, and then they send out the link, and they can even use whatever payment method you want. If it's PayPal, or if it's Stripe, or whatever payment method you have, you can just upload your information to them. And also what's nice about both of those services is that it's a monthly fee for bandwidth, as opposed to them getting the money and then giving you the money. You just pay your monthly fee and you keep all the money 100% of the time. Something I didn't like about it, though, is it eliminates our ticketing system and our data gathering, and it eliminates what we use for a lot of our metrics as far as future performances and advertising. So trying to figure out how to integrate that, I've been at a loss for. You can, of course, go free, and then, or you can do a paywall on your own website. The thing that I can't, and if anybody has an idea about this, the reason I like the paywall on our website is because then we still had complete control of the ticketing, and there wasn't a third party that had our patron information. But there wasn't a way that I've found yet to have a unique user ID, like with Bill and using that streamingvideoprovider.com. If more than one person tried to log in with that unique user link, then it shut it down. If you just do a paywall on the back end of your site, there's nothing to say to save you from, Joe Schmo sharing that link with 10 of his friends and doing that. So that's about as far as I've gotten. I mean, I have all sorts of notes for equipment and video switchers and software if anybody wants to talk later, but that's as far as I got as far as paywall and trying to charge for something.
Thanks, David. So, and that's kind of one aspect of, I think we're also talking logistically of, if you're streaming a performance that the artist is doing versus possibly an at-home artist thing, right? There's kind of two separate things there as well. And one of the things that came up, Abby Well-Boss from William Morris something sorry, Kim brought this to my attention. They're actually thinking of putting out their, at-home concerts that are through their agency. Their artists would perform at-home concerts, and there's a whole conversation then of what that, if the artist is taking on some of the I guess technology side of things, but I don't know if you'd still need a streaming platform. So there's that whole thing. Kim, go ahead.
Sure, thank you. Kim from the Weil Center in beautiful downtown Sheboygan. When talking with Abby, she said the artists are, for these home concerts, will take care of everything. So I took that to literally mean they would take care of it. That's why some of the artists on their roster won't do them. They're just not comfortable. This isn't their gig, and others are all over it. But yeah, I thought that was one of the more appetizing parts of her idea of what she would love to possibly talk to us about, is that it seemed like it should be relatively easy because the artist was going to do the work.
Thanks. Yeah, so we have about 7 minutes left. So what I was thinking is, if we have another conversation next week, that we include Abby in that conversation and kind of a continuation of this. And I can also see then if Tommy could possibly come to that as well. I don't know if it needs to be two separate. I think if we have Abby and Tommy here, we can hash out hopefully a lot of things. Otherwise, if it ends up being that we discuss a lot of these things with Abby and try to wrap our heads around what she's thinking, and we don't have a lot of time to pick Tommy's brain, we can also then just add another session, hopefully if Tommy is willing and available. So that's what I'm thinking for sometime next week, if everybody thinks that's a doable idea. Tiana?
If we go ahead and do that, I'm wondering if we have some pre-questions for them so they can kind of prepare a little bit more instead of just being like on the spot and trying to find their time. Because I'm sure, we all have, I'm sure you're already gathering some of the questions that have come up today, but I'm sure we'll think about them going forward. Maybe someone didn't think of it at the time. I think having those for Abby and Tommy, I think that would be really great. They seem that they're on that point of understanding and knowing more than where we're at right now.
Sure. Kim, did you have your hand up?
Sure. I'd be happy to take the, I'm sorry, my mother's calling.
Better get that.
I know. Just one moment. Can you hang on a minute, Mom? Yeah. Okay. I'd be happy to get questions ready for Abby, and I'll put my email down here. The one thing that was also appealing about what she was saying with Abby, I saw Mary's question. Abby Wells-Boss from WME, William Morris Entertainment Agency, right?
I think that's what the E stands for, yes.
Yeah, Entertainment
Endeavor.
Endeavor. I knew it wasn't
entertainment. Yeah. She's out of Nashville. I think a lot of us do know her. She's very nice. She's very even Steven. She's not going to try to force anybody to do anything. And she said what she's proposing also to the artists, since we're all performing arts centers and so many of us are nonprofits, she was looking to the artists to, like, if we get people to come buy that ticket, that, you know, virtual ticket, and watch the show, that there would be a split with us, like your center would keep half and the artist would keep half. It's simply the artists then are saying, I'm gonna give back to all of you also. So there was a lot of good to it.
Cool. Thanks, Kim. Yeah, so I think what we'll do is we'll set that up. I'll make sure Abby's available, and hopefully around a similar time next week, we can get that going. We'll see if Tommy can join us as well. So we've got about 4 minutes left. Any final thoughts or, you know, major questions that we want to kind of lead in with next week as well for Abby or Tommy? Josiah.
My question is, how many of you are actually considering doing this in the fall? Because right now, I might have to go that route. Because I talked with the superintendent yesterday, and his best educated guess is that no sports, no nothing will be happening in the fall. So I'm just wondering how many of you are actually considering doing this seriously, or how many of you are just, I don't know. I'm kind of scared and nervous to do it because I should be tech savvy, but I'm not 100% tech savvy. And it's only me that would have to be doing this, with hopefully my sound tech could help me out with it a little bit. But that's the nerve-wracking part. But if a lot of you are doing this, then I might feel more comfortable, and then I can, you know, tag along and ask questions and take things from you and use it for me. But yeah, just curious how many of you are seriously considering doing it.
Thanks, Josiah. I would say everybody, if you're seriously considering it, maybe just put a I am in the chat. Otherwise, we can take a poll at the end. I have Tom, then Tiana, then Pat. Tom, go ahead.
Sorry, I would say we're seriously considering it because we're kind of looking at this whole thing as pre-vaccine and post-vaccine. So pre-vaccine, meaning we're going to have to do social distancing until the vaccine is in place. And so if we do the social distancing and we've got a third capacity, don't you want to have a value-added service of having that online streamed performance available? And that also relates to what I said earlier about the at-risk population. So because of the limited capacity and wanting to serve your at-risk population, which I would bet is a lot of your audiences, that's why we're looking seriously at it.
Thanks, Tom. Tiana?
I don't know if people saw, but CDC just released their guidelines yesterday, and some of it was for opening schools. And in one of them, in their recommendation, by the way, I'm sure that's going to be per local government. They say no field trips, assemblies, or external organizations in schools, limit volunteers and visitors. So there's a lot of us that are part of an institution of some sort. So what does that mean? And I don't have exactly, it's a very long report, so I haven't read through like timeline and phases. We are considering it because of being an institution and for students being able to show their work. But I have to say, our live streaming, when we're in the venue, it worked. It's been going great for us. If I have a show, we had a show that something was wrong with the technology and we got it recorded, but it wasn't live stream. Oh my gosh, parents were just like, where is it? Where is it? Like, you know, so I mean, it was a hit and miss and sometimes for some shows, but I think for us, it really worked well because our students aren't always from Wisconsin and Illinois. And so for their families to be able to tune in, it was really important to them. But yeah, we're looking into that just because of the new possible guidelines. And I don't know what our local governments are going to make us do.
Thanks, Tiana. Pat?
We are seriously thinking about it. As I said, we've canceled our season for next year, but we only do 4 shows a season. So it's not like we have to live stream a lot to keep our patrons engaged, but we do not want them to forget about us. So we want to do something, whether it's live performances or just videos of past performances. But I know we want to do something, and we will need a lot of help to do that because none of us are real tech savvy either, Josiah.
Thanks, Pat. All right, any final comments? I think this is probably a good place then to wrap it up for today. So I will go ahead and stop the recording.